Our story begins on Geonosis, inside of the Separatist hangar as Count Dooku is preparing to make his escape to Coruscant. But as the Count messed with some tools to prepare for his departure, two Jedi ran in behind him with their lightsabers ignited. Dooku turned slowly, amused to see who it was. Obi-Wan, Padawan of Qui-Gon Jinn, almost like a grandson to Dooku in some ways. And of course, the young Anakin Skywalker, the Jedi that Darth Sidious was already so obsessed with. The one who Sidious intends to bring to their side once this war is all but over. Dooku was looking forward to testing the abilities of Skywalker and Kenobi to see just how well they work together, and yet Anakin yelled out to Dooku that he's going to pay for all the Jedi that he killed here today. Dooku reached out with the Force, and he could feel Anakin's anger, his rage. It was burning inside of him. In fact, it was tearing him apart. Fascinating, Dooku thought. Did Anakin truly care about the Jedi this much? Or was there something else, something separate from today's events, that helped to unlock this rage within the boy? Either way, it would be his undoing. Anakin ran past Obi-Wan, insisting that he's taking Dooku right now, and as Anakin ran in, Dooku simply lifted a hand, blasted Anakin with lightning, and threw him hard into a pocket near the wall. Dooku turned his gaze to Kenobi, saying his powers far exceed his own. And then, the two of them crashed their blades against each other. High up in the wall, Anakin's body was recovering from the lightning. His limbs were spasming, the electricity had burned his robes, but he soon managed to look down to Dooku and Obi-Wan as they fought. Anakin watched, and he came to the terrible realization. Obi-Wan was losing. Dooku was almost just toying with him. Anakin knew he was perhaps the last hope for Obi-Wan and for himself to survive this. No Jedi were coming to help them. He knew Padme was probably on the way with a clone squadron, but they would have no chance against Dooku. Anakin knew that if Dooku escapes, it will mean unchecked war for the galaxy. And so Anakin felt his rage, but he didn't try to fight it anymore. He watched Dooku, and he realized that perhaps the best way to fight Dooku's fire is with his own. So Anakin allowed himself to feel the same emotions that he felt on Tatooine when he slaughtered the Tuskens. The hate, sadness, rage, anger. Anakin felt all of it, and he just let it flow through him. And right as Dooku was about to kill Kenobi, Anakin jumped back into battle, kicking Dooku hard in the chest. Dooku tumbled backwards, then looked up to see a new man in Anakin's eyes. There he is, Dooku thought, the future of the Sith, just as Sidious predicted. And Anakin ran in, forcing Dooku to step backwards, dodging much more than parrying, as Anakin's green blade slashed past his face. His movements were much quicker. Dooku was able to separate himself for only a moment. He told Anakin that his powers are unusually strong, and he's taken his first steps into the world that Dooku has now begun to understand, the world of the Sith. Anakin reached a hand towards Obi-Wan, pulling his blue blade into his open hand, then spun back in at Dooku with two sabers. He told Dooku that he is mistaken. Today, the Sith find their end. Anakin pressed forward, green and blue sabers carving arcs through the air. Dooku parried this time with a quick flick, pivoting his blade low, narrowly avoiding the blue saber that sliced towards his knees. Dooku felt the heat of it graze his trousers, and Anakin responded instantly, rotating his wrist, driving the green saber down on Dooku's shoulder, as Dooku barely got his saber there in time. Sparks flew past their faces. Dooku twisted away, breaking free, sending a force push at Anakin's chest, and Anakin absorbed the impact with a roll, coming up on his feet and charging back in. Dooku was retreating towards the hangar ramp now. He underestimated Skywalker. He swung his saber in a wide defensive arc, trying to create more space, but Anakin launched into a spinning assault. He struck from the left with the green saber, then immediately from the right with the blue. Dooku deflected the green blade, but took a searing graze across his bicep from the blue one. He stumbled, eyes wide with fear all of a sudden. The ramp to his solar sailor hissed as it opened up. Dooku used the pain as fuel instead of fear, and he lunged forward, executing a rapid series of tight strikes. His blade cut the edge of Anakin's blue saber, twisted, and flung it from his hand. Anakin was caught off guard by this, and a heartbeat later, he parried the green saber, stepped in, and drove his hilt into Anakin's wrist, disarming him completely. Both sabers clattered across the floor. Dooku expected Anakin to cower, but Anakin didn't retreat. He stepped towards Dooku before the Count could react, then turned his body, locking Dooku's sabered arm at the elbow. With a sharp downward thrust of his shoulder, He forced the hilt from Dooku's grip. It spun through the air. Anakin snatched it mid-arc, then sliced downward to cut off both of Dooku's hands at the elbow before kicking him hard into the wall. Dooku slumped to the floor in shock. He looked up at Anakin, as he was now only holding one lightsaber, his red one. It was reflecting in his eyes. It looked natural. Anakin lifted it for the kill. At the entrance to the hangar, though, Grandmaster Yoda slowly walked in to see the scene. Obi-Wan, defeated on the floor, but across the room, Anakin holding the blade of the Sith over his head. Before Yoda could do anything, Anakin swung the blade downward, and Dooku's head rolled to the floor. And as Dooku died, the dark side of the Force that was surrounding this room, suffocating it, this feeling did not dissipate, despite the death of the Sith. Yoda reached a hand out, ripping the red saber out of Anakin's hands and into his own as he extinguished it. Anakin barely moved. He looked down at his own hands, wondered what he'd just done. Who was he? How did he do this? He executed Dooku. Not for justice, not for peace. It was all rage, vengeance, the same emptiness he felt after the Tuskens clawed at him again. It was hollow and cold. The raw power, the ease of all of it, the total certainty. Anakin feared himself because of how natural it had felt. Yoda's heart sank in this moment. The prophecy of the Chosen One had always brought uncertainty, but now he saw it clearly. This boy held the galaxy in the balance. With every step forward, he walked closer to a future clouded by shadow. If this path was not quickly diverted, if the seed was allowed to grow, Anakin would not be the one to bring balance. He would be the reason it shatters. Anakin finally turned to Yoda, who was tending to Kenobi's wounds, and he didn't have any words. Padme and the clone squad would eventually run inside, as the clones secured the perimeter, while Padme looked to Dooku's body. While she wondered what happened, she also knew that without Dooku, the Separatist movement could begin to collapse in upon itself. He was the North Star for the entire Separatist army. She wished Dooku was still alive to negotiate, but his death could certainly escalate peace talks. And behind her, one of the clone troopers stepped cautiously up the ramp into Dooku's small ship. Inside, the cockpit's console was still pulsing with soft lights, and the navicomputer displayed an active but unconfirmed hyperspace trajectory. Dooku had instructed his droid to start entering coordinates before the fight, never expecting he would actually lose today. The clone, who called himself Rafe, leaned in, reading the screen. He called out for Yoda, saying he's got something strange here. Coordinates were loaded, but as the clone spoke, the ship's droid flickered as its photoreceptors now flared red. The droid spoke aloud, saying that the clone's voice was not recognized. Security has been breached. Countermeasures have been activated. Rafe's eyes went wide. He sprinted down the ramp, shouting to take cover. Everyone barely had time to react before the solar sailor erupted in a fiery explosion, sending debris and smoke ripping across the hangar floor. The clone lay smoking and bloodied, but still barely alive. Yoda knelt beside him, and the clone leaned in, telling Yoda he was able to memorize the coordinates. Rafe was able to read off the coordinates to Yoda before he fell to the floor, dead. And Yoda quickly realized that the coordinates pointed not to a separatist stronghold, but to the depths of Coruscant, specifically the industrial sector, long believed decommissioned overall. It was a region abandoned by the Republic long ago, shrouded in shadows and forgotten tunnels. Yoda wished silently for the Force to be with this fallen clone, and he wondered aloud why Dooku would be going to Coruscant. Obi-Wan, now back on his feet, would remember something. Before the battle, Dooku revealed to him that a Sith Lord called Darth Sidious was in direct control of the Republic. Kenobi had assumed this was a scare tactic, but if Dooku had been telling the truth, then perhaps this Lord Sidious is who Dooku was meeting. Yoda quickly contacted Windu and told him to meet in this hangar. The two of them would go out and find out the truth about all of this. But then, another revelation. Another clone trooper, this one called Keel, picked up a data disk that was sticking out of Dooku's robes. Yoda, Padme, Anakin, and Obi-Wan looked on as this clone turned on the disk. A red hologram appeared of a space station with a huge weapon emerging from the center of it. The data readouts of the size of this battle station were unbelievable, and it was labeled as the Death Star. Yoda couldn't believe his former Padawan, Dooku, would ever be involved in such horrors for the entire galaxy. He somberly turned to Anakin, Obi-Wan, and Padme, telling them that they must get this disc to the Senate. Well, Obi-Wan had to be seen by doctors, so this mission would actually be up to Padme and Anakin alone. Anakin said he wants to go with Yoda and Windu, help them fight Sidious, but Yoda told Anakin that his mission is still to protect Senator Amidala. Anakin nodded, and Yoda said that no one else can be trusted with this information. Only the two of them can know what is truly on that disc until it is shown to the Senate, as they cannot be sure who is working with Dooku. Yoda would watch Anakin and Padme take off on a gunship, as they were headed back to Coruscant with information that could end the war. If the Separatists see the true nature of who their leader was, and the weapon that Dooku intended to build, then they will see that Dooku and the CIS are wrong and not to be followed. Moments later, Windu would arrive as the two Jedi boarded a Geonosian ship capable of making the jump to hyperspace. Whoever they were meeting had to think they were still Dooku, or at least that they were not Jedi. Once they were in hyperspace, Mace Windu couldn't get the image of Dooku's dead body out of his mind. Before the battle began, Windu had regretted not just ending it all right there. As Windu fought on Geonosis, watched countless Jedi fall, he knew he could have ended it all with a flick of his blade. If it weren't for himself honoring Dooku, even perhaps considering him a friend at one point, he would have done it. This, Windu thought, was exactly why the Order prohibits personal attachment. Deep down, he was happy that Skywalker had ended it. Many lives have been saved today, and as Yoda told Windu about how Skywalker did it, with his dark side rising, Windu promised himself he would go to Anakin. He would help him with this, because he owed him. The two of them would talk throughout the entire trip about where the galaxy could go from here. The revelation of the Death Star should help to crater the Separatist movement, but there will be those who may choose to fight still, and so war could go on for a bit. But the two of them knew today that they will have a chance to destroy whoever was commanding Dooku. And as the Geonosian ship entered Coruscant, Yoda and Windu tried to hide their force signatures as the ship approached the industrial sector. Inside of the Limerge building hangar, Darth Sidious could see the approach of a Geonosian ship in the distance. This was not Dooku's ship, and whenever Dooku approached, he was told to use a specific code to show Sidious that it was him. That code never came. Sidious scowled in anger as the ship approached. Dooku was either captured or dead, and the Death Star plans likely went with him. So Sidious quickly sent an order to the security around the Senate building. Posing as the Chancellor, he told security that a message has been intercepted, saying that someone has hidden an explosive inside of a data disk. Search everyone who tries to enter the building, destroy the data disk, and whoever is carrying it when found. Sidious prepared himself for what was to come. Windu flew the small ship into the hangar, landing it as he and Yoda exited the ramp and looked around to find an empty room. Whoever was supposed to be here was either late, or they knew that Dooku was not in the ship. Windu held his blade up, looking around the large dark room until he spotted something. In a corner, up by the ceiling, it looked as if two yellow eyes were staring right at him, like a large bat. A chill ran down Windu's spine as he got closer, and in that moment, Darth Sidious unleashed himself from the corner, flying down at Windu with his red blades ignited, swinging down on him and Yoda with fury. Across Coruscant, Anakin and Padme took a gunship down from the Venator that brought them back here as they approached the Senate building, only for Anakin to realize something was off. Security around the entire building had increased dramatically. Clone troopers somehow already lined the steps. ID scanners were pulsing with red lights. Overhead recon droids drifted in slow, watchful circles. The data disk Padme carried, proof of the Death Star project hidden deep in the Republic's records, was vital to ending the war. Getting caught was not an option. They didn't simply take the front gate. Instead, they would slip into an alley 3 levels down. Anakin led Padme into a rusted maintenance hatch, leading to a web of tunnels beneath the Senate dome. With Anakin guiding the way, they crept through the dark service corridors, bypassing motion detectors with perfect timing. When a trio of maintenance droids rolled past them, Anakin froze them mid-motion with the Force, allowing the two of them to slip behind a ventilation shaft that opened into the lower levels of the building. In the chambers below the Senate, protocol droids were being reprogrammed for increased surveillance. They moved silently behind the droid team, hugging the walls, ducking into a prep room just as a scanning wave pulsed down the corridor. Inside, Padme cracked open a secured storage case filled with senatorial robes and identification tabs. She found a set marked for Chandrillan Delicate and his aide. A few quick tabs on her datapad reprogrammed the tags to reflect Naboo credentials. With a nod, they stepped out in full uniform, joining a diplomatic procession headed toward the chamber. The final obstacle was a full-body scanner just outside the main chamber. Anakin, sensing the device's energy pulse, stepped back into a side hallway and used a multi-tool to pull a power junction from the wall. He rerouted a single current wire through the floor panel, causing a surge that temporarily disabled the scanner's feed, just long enough for the two of them to pass through unnoticed. Now inside the Senate, with 1,000 voices echoing around them waiting for Palpatine, Padme took her place in the Naboo pod. Anakin was just behind her, the data disk hidden inside the lining of her robe, and she prepared herself to present this to the galaxy. Elsewhere, lightning pulsed through the rafters of the Limerge building as Sidious twisted between Windu and Yoda. Windu came at him, hammering down with a two-handed assault, driving Sidious to the edge of the platform outside. The Sith Lord countered with vicious rotations of his sabers, one parrying high, while the other lashed low. Yoda leapt in from behind, flipping over Sidious midair, and landed with a sweeping slash aimed at his back. Sidious ducked, then hurled a wave of lightning outward, sending Yoda spiraling across the room. Windu used the moment to regain position, catching Sidious's left blade on his own, twisting hard. Metal sparked as their hilts ground together, until Sidious used the Force to blast Windu into a near pillar. Yoda recovered quickly, sliding under Sidious's next strike and launching upward with a spinning arc that clipped the Sith's cloak. Windu rejoined with a wide horizontal slash that forced Sidious into retreat. The two Jedi pressed in, alternating angles, and Windu locked one saber, holding it in place as Yoda sprang forward and sliced the second blade clean from Sidious's grip. Snarling, Sidious launched both hands in a torrent of lightning. Windu absorbed it on one blade, stepping forward against the current. Yoda used the distraction to climb the wall behind Sidious, leaping, flipping through the air and slicing across the Sith Lord's face, as Windu was able to drive his purple blade forward. Sidious's body collapsed in an explosion of energy, dark roads crumpling into smoke as he died. The building went silent, except for the hum of Windu's saber and Yoda's breathing. The Sith were gone, and beneath the hood was the face of Chancellor Palpatine. Yoda and Windu would soon fly across Coruscant, and they would find Anakin and Padme in the Senate, as Windu would tell them the truth about Palpatine being a Sith Lord. So, standing together, the four of them moved to the center of the Senate. Padme, Windu, Yoda, and Anakin, facing not only the Republic senators in person, but the holographic presence of the Separatist senators, began to speak. May stepped forward first, presenting the evidence that Dooku was working directly with Palpatine. Timestamped, coded, verified, it revealed the secret meetings, orders given under false identities, and the coordination of both sides of the war to ensure endless conflict was to come. Padme followed with the next reveal, the Death Star plans, a superweapon for galactic control. The chamber would fall into stunned silence as the image of the weapon's skeletal flame rotated in the air above them. Padme turned to both senates, voice steady but urgent, saying the war was a lie, orchestrated by two men who manipulated fear and chaos to seize their power. Now both were gone, and the path forward rested with those that were still here. Windu urged unity to end the war, to dismantle the armies, and to hold those responsible accountable. Padme pressed the message further, gaze locked with the Separatist senators. This was the chance to build something new. Across both senates, people began to agree that this was the way to make sure that no more conflict can arise. The war would end before it could truly begin. With Palpatine and Dooku exposed and destroyed, there was no need to fight. A coalition emerged, blending the idealism of both sides. Former Separatist worlds were granted autonomy within the new structure. The Jedi Order became advisors and guardians once more. The military dissolved, and the clones created were used as localized peacekeeping forces for the elected officials. When it was over, Windu, once wary of young Skywalker, would see something deeper in him now, the same fire he had once fought to master. The bond between the two of them would grow in the aftermath of it all. Windu began to teach Anakin. When Anakin would confess the slaughter of the Tusken Raiders, Windu didn't turn away from him. Instead, he brought Anakin into the teachings of Vapad, the Jedi form designed to feel and harness one's inner darkness, rather than completely suppress it. Together they trained as Windu taught Anakin how to feel its anger, acknowledge it, without letting it define him, to control it. In time, Anakin's wild power was focused, deliberate, and he was one in the light. Windu found purpose in shaping Anakin into the Jedi he was always meant to be. Obi-Wan, relieved and proud of Anakin, would accept his seat on the council, content to step back and watch the boy find his new way. Anakin still loved Padme, and with no war to hide from, they would marry quietly under Naboo's sky, with peace on the horizon for the galaxy. folks, that is where our story ends today. Hope you guys enjoyed this one. I know, like, what, 2 weeks ago maybe? I did What If Dooku, What If Anakin killed Dooku during the Clone Wars? And yeah, this is different. It's before the Clone Wars, so it's different. And I just had a fun idea for both of them, so wanted to pursue both of them. And honestly, when I was like, I want to do this, I forgot I did the Clone Wars one just 2 weeks ago, so either way, I had a lot of fun with this story. It is windy as heck outside where I live, where I'll never tell you. I could be anywhere. I don't know. Anyways. Yeah. Windy. I had to pause like 5 times just so you guys wouldn't be hearing while I recorded, so yeah, I don't know. Who cares, right? Anyways, thanks for watching. Let's subscribe. We're close to 100,000. Let's get there. Come on. Thanks, everybody. Appreciate you guys, and I'll see you in the next video.